So because I did all the writing about the Disney movies and looking at the Disney company through its history of its animation, I kind of got into like how's Disney doing business wise? I think the story of Disney is the story of animation and movie making in general. So 2023 was not a good year, and I made a video about it. They did a whole bunch of things that didn't land well and lost a bunch of money. And even some of the things that did work were like, it used to work better. So 2024 was interesting for Disney in that they slowed the heck down. Some of that was probably because of the pandemic. Some of that was probably because of them figuring out what they wanted to do. But they only did like 6 major releases. And when I mean major, I don't mean the horror movies or the Fox Searchlight Oscar bait movies. Like, I'm not talking about the Bob Dylan thing that I only just realized was made by Disney. But they only made 6 movies. And for the most part, they did pretty well. They actually cycled in some new IPs that hadn't been touched in a while, including Alien and Planet of the Apes, and they kept the Marvel output lower. They still did the traditional Pixar animated movie and the Disney Animation Studio, whatever the title is for their regular studio. They still did those movies. So let's go through them and see how they did. So, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. This was a continuation of a franchise that Fox had, and when Disney bought that, they ended up getting this movie franchise. So, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes made $400 million off a budget of $160 million. That's not $1 billion. That's not printing money, but it was not embarrassing. $400 million is nothing to sneeze at, especially since they didn't spend $200 or $300 million. It earned $90 million less than the previous entry in the series, which came out a few years back. That is a little misleading because that movie actually made $112 million from China compared to $29 million from the movie that came out this year. If you know anything about movie revenue from China, from American studios, it is actually part of U.S. trade deals with China that the movie studio gets only 23, I think, 22, 23% of the ticket sales from tickets sold in China. So that 120 million earned in the last movie really only comes out to like 26 million or something in profits. So when you got that much more of your international gross from China, it's kind of misleading in that money's not really coming back to you. So I would say they made about the same if you consider the previous China box office with the current China box office. That doesn't sound great, but this is a pretty difficult box office environment. There's not a whole bunch of movies making just an extremely generous amount of money anymore. And we'll talk about that a little more with some of the bigger successes from Disney. So it's not an embarrassing return. They had a whole bunch of embarrassing returns last year where Indiana Jones lost a whole bunch of money, Haunted Mansion lost a whole bunch of money. I don't think Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes lost a whole lot. And whatever did happen, they must be okay with it because they're actually working on more. So if it was a financial failure, they certainly wouldn't be doing that. So the second movie of the year was Inside Out 2. Inside Out 2 is actually the second highest grossing movie. It's the highest grossing movie of the year. In fact, it's one of the highest grossing movies of all time. It's actually the highest grossing animated movie, period, even if you consider the previous Lion King live action thing an animated movie, which I don't, because they weren't going for that kind of deal. But anyway, this ends that debate because now Inside Out 2 is the highest grossing animated movie of all time. It's actually the 8th highest grossing movie, period, of all time. That's good. 1.7 billion is a stupid amount of money. So that's really good news for Disney animation in general. It had been a bit since Pixar or Disney had something that was this successful. So it shows that people will still come to see it in the movie theater because for a while Disney had trained its audience to just wait for the animated stuff on streaming. So highest grossing movie of the year, big success. Second highest grossing movie of the year was also Disney. It was Deadpool and Wolverine, $1.33 billion. So far, the only two movies that have made over $1 billion, and possibly the only $2 billion threshold movies of the year. This is the highest grossing rated R movie of all time, and currently is the 20th highest grossing movie of all time of any rating. So, big success. Again, the only Marvel movie of the year did really, really well. And I think if they're going to keep doing the Marvel stuff, they need to slow the hell down a little bit and make sure they're characters and actors that people care about. People definitely like Deadpool, they definitely like Wolverine, they definitely like both of those actors as those characters. So, good for them. Their fourth movie was Alien Romulus. So, alien movies are typically rated R, and outside of the core ones that everyone thinks are some of the best movies of all time, they don't necessarily get a whole lot of money in movie theaters. Alien Romulus made $350 million. This was off an $80 million budget. At one point in time, this was supposed to be a streaming movie, and after the success of Prey, somebody at the studio smartened up and went, "Why aren't we getting movie theater revenue off of this?" And no one had a great answer, so they did it. Now, 110 million of those dollars were from China, and as I mentioned before, you don't get a lot of that back as the movie studio. It was one of the most successful movies from an American studio in China this year, but still, that $110 million turns into like $26 million in profit. So it's hard to figure out if it was profitable in theaters with all the maths, especially since this was a bigger success internationally, which, while international theaters outside of China earn more for the movie studio, it's still not as good, or still not as big a return as an American ticket. So I'm going to guess it was a good business decision to release it in theaters, as it got money compared to no money that you would have gotten on streaming if you had spent $80 million on streaming. Obviously, you probably wouldn't have nearly as much of an advertising budget in order to get people to watch it on streaming, but that still doesn't lead to any kind of revenue for the most part. So I'm going to say it was a good deal. Looking forward to Alien Remus. I don't care if you get that joke. The next movie that came out for, and we're kind of still getting returns there, is Moana 2. Now, we're at $882 million and counting. This movie was a sequel to a movie that really picked up steam on streaming. It was a decent success in theaters originally, but it kind of became the movie that everyone watched on streaming and everyone's kids watched on streaming. So, not surprised it's done well. And in fact, I'm actually surprised it hasn't done better so far. Like, I really assumed this would break the $1 billion threshold, and I'm not really sure if it's going to at this point in time. Obviously, another strong success for animation. That's 2 for 2 on animation this year, of coming out and making a whole bunch of money and showing that there's still a lot of life left in Disney animation, and that if you make a movie that people want to see, they will see it. Now, Moana 2's reviews haven't been great. I haven't seen it yet. I'll probably catch it on streaming, keep up with my seeing all of the Disney movies deal, but the budget was $150 million because this one was also supposed to be on a streaming project, and then they turned into a theatrical project. So it's a little bit cheaper than usual for Disney, which means that it's just going to be more profitable. It is the 4th highest grossing movie of the year, and there is a chance that it becomes the 3rd highest grossing. So that's a success. The first movie made $643 million, and it's already well past that right now. So I'd say success, but I'm surprised it hasn't been more successful. Last movie of the year was Mufasa the Lion King. I do not care at all about the live action remake thing. Like, I consider it one of Disney's franchises at this point to make live action remake movies consistently enough on the seemingly almost the same timeline as Marvel, though I guess Marvel is more than that. But it's at $328 million and counting. I think there's been a little bit of a surprise that it hasn't done better. Like, the live action Lion King movie was very successful, and this is definitely not getting there at this point in time. But it's not totally clear if it's going to be profitable at this point. It has been beaten fairly well by Sonic 3 in the US. International numbers are different and still ongoing. So I think this Mufasa movie is going to have to leg out into January pretty well to be considered a financial success. But even if it is, I still think maybe this is a sign that the live action remake franchise or train or whatever they think of it, I think that well is running dry. Like, I think people are getting a little tired of it. It's just the same movie, but not as good in one way or the other. For me, it's not as good because it's live action. Like, is anything live action going to look better than the original animated movie? Because in animation, you can just do so many other things. Like, but not for me. For other people, they might be more concerned about casting choices or politics or wokeness and all that. But I just don't care because I've seen these movies already and I can see them again for free on the streaming service at any time. So, or to put it another way, if they're having trouble getting people to see a Little Mermaid remake or a Lion King remake, and they're having trouble making those blockbusters, like what hope does Snow White have? Probably none. One last thing that came out this year that I really enjoyed that wasn't in the movie, I may as well talk about it here, is X-Men 97. I liked it. I don't know the business metrics of it, but they seem to be making more seasons of it, and I liked it. I'm not the biggest comic guy in the world, but I do like X-Men, and I have some memories of the original X-Men cartoon, but I think this did good. It looked really good. It did a good job evolving from the original series without sacrificing the feel and people's like memories of the original series. So this might be another sign that Disney can and will incorporate the X-Men characters into their media output well. Like maybe this will breathe new life into the Marvel movies. Just this wave of characters that can kind of revitalize it. Wave of characters that people like. Like I think X-Men is one of their top shelf properties when compared to like a bunch of things I don't know and I've never heard of. Like I imagine people will show up for Wolverine and Cyclops way more than they'll show up for who are the Thunderbolts. I don't know. So, closing thoughts. I thought Disney was forced to pace themselves well this year and made a whole bunch of money off of it and didn't cannibalize their own movies nearly as much as they used to. They didn't have a movie showing up 2 weeks before a different movie. There was still, I think Moana 2 might be cannibalizing the Lion King movie a little bit, but they spread them out better this year, and I think this was a big change from 2023 and a big success compared to 2023. So, good stuff from Disney in 2024. But how's 2025 going to go?